Hi there, what's going on? Let's learn today a bit about gradients and the gradient panel in Illustrator. The gradient panel is located right over there. If you don't see it, you can always go up to Windows and choose gradient from there. Or you can use that shortcut. And of course you can move it around anywhere by just holding anywhere on this gray area on top. To show all the options, you can go to this icon here and choose show options. In this case it's hide options. Or you can even press on this double arrow right next to the name and just press on it once. That will show or hide the option. So what is actually a gradient? A gradient is the transition between two colors. So you have to have at least two colors for a gradient to be able to happen. And it transfers the color from one color to another. So you can have it from purple to blue, say. You can choose a drastic and sharp transition between the colors. So you wouldn't have too much of an area where the colors mix together. Or you can have a very smooth transitions where you wouldn't be able to tell so much and the colors just go into the other very nicely. So we'll see about those now. To apply a gradient, you can just create a shape or just choose any object. Press on this main gradient panel. So the default is a black and white gradient, but we'll see how you can change it to any other gradient you want. Underneath here, we've got this slider. This is where we control the gradient. And these here are our color stops. So as you can see, we've got two color stops. You wouldn't be able to have anything less than two because as we said, this is a transition from one color to another and you would have to have at least two colors. You could choose to have them the same color, but that's not a gradient anymore. You can select any color stop and move it around anywhere along the gradient and you'll get different transformation options. You can also double click on any color stop and that'll open your color panel. You can choose from here this color panel. If you don't see your colors, you can go up to this option here and choose different color modes, RGB, HSB, all of these. So let's just go for RGB. And you can give this any color you wish. Or you can choose from the colors which you have on your document from the swatches there. Or you can even choose a color picker and pick anywhere on the artboard or on your document to just sample a color. You can just exit it by pressing escape. So now you've changed the color of the gradient. If you want to add more stops, you can hover underneath this line here. As you can see, my icon there changes to this like plus thing and you just click anywhere you want to add and you just added a stop. Now you can give this any color you wish. You can also give this an opacity. You can choose from any opacities here and you can even choose the location. So you can type in a location if you want to get exact amounts. On top here we've got these small diamonds. These control, remember I said we can get a very drastic and sharp transformation or a very smooth one. So this is where we'll control it from. This diamond is what makes the color. As you can see now, this is a lot sharper. From this like pink to white, it's a lot sharper, and if we put it more in the center, then that's a lot smoother. You can also choose the location for this one over there, and you can choose to make a gradient from 100% fill to 0% fill, for instance. So now this doesn't have any fill on it at all, as you can see when you move it to here. So it goes like from full to a see-through color. Just one important point to mention when you're making gradients, make sure that the fill is on top. So as you can see, this is my fill and this is the stroke. If the stroke will be on top, then anything I do will be affecting the stroke and not the fill. So let's just bring the fill to a white color, say. And now if this thing will be on top and we're making a gradient, you wouldn't be able to see anything and you'd like wondering why is this not working, and you just have to swap around the fill and the stroke. You could press on this icon or just press on this, that will control the fill, or you can use the shortcut X on the keyboard. So until now we spoke about regular linear gradients, either horizontal or vertical. You can even change the angle from here, so you can get any angle you want. As you can see, you can just change it here to any angle. But there is another gradient that's a radial gradients. So you can see from here on the top we have a few options. This is the linear gradient, which we were dealing with until now. Now you've got next to that another gradient, and that's the radial one. If you press on that, you'll see your whole gradient changes to this circular gradient. So this is just like the regular one. We can control it here, add color stops by hovering anywhere, and all of that stuff, just like we mentioned. And just by the way, I don't think we mentioned this point. To delete a color stop, you can just select it and press backspace, or you can just press on the bin there and I'll delete that color stop. So here we've got just the same, all the location and all of this. And we've got the angle, which of course wouldn't make any difference because it's a circle. But here we've got another option which actually squashes the circle. And now when we change the angle, we'll be able to see this star thing moving around. You can also change the direction of the angle. That will reverse it all by this icon here. And then we've got another cool option. That's a free form gradient. You wouldn't have it in the old versions of Illustrator, but here we've got it on the third option. If you press on that, we'll see this whole gradient gets lost, and you have random dots. You can select any one of these and move them around. You can double click here and get to your colors. As you can see, this is affecting my overall picture here, or the appearance of this object. You can change the color also from double clicking on this stop here, and I'll also change it to whichever color you want. So this is quite cool and can be very fun. You can just move them around anywhere you want, and as you can see, it just changes it. Here we've got this option where you can pull it out or push it in. That just controls the amount of control each stop will have. If you want to add anyone, you can just hover wherever you want and just add a stop. And to delete one, of course, you can press backspace after you choose it, or you can just delete it from here. And once again, we've got here the opacity and the spread. That's just how big this will be. So you can hover there and make it 100%. So that's a very fun and easy option to create very cool gradients. You have another option when you choose the free form gradient. You can choose either points or lines. This is another form of gradients. It's very similar to the curvature tool. You can check it out there, and I think it will help you a lot to understand this, how it works. This creates a gradient along the line which I'm creating, so you can see it's actually creating curves anywhere where I place the next point. That's where the curve will be directed to, and I can create a line with gradients in it. You can leave go the line so you wouldn't carry on this thing by pressing escape. And once again, this is just like the stops. You can double click here and choose any color, and it's just quite cool because it creates it along a line, so you'll be able to use it for anything which you're doing lines anywhere. You can actually keep it this way. I think quite an interesting effect. If you want to create a straight line, you can hold down Alt or Option. As you can see, that makes straight lines and not curves. So I didn't press down Alt there. You get the point of it. And also, if you want to select a few points, you can just hold down Shift and that'll add to your selection. We've also got another form of gradient. As I said, we have to make sure that the fill is on top because we wouldn't be affecting the fill, only the stroke if the stroke is on top. But in this case, we want to choose the stroke to be on top and give it a very thick stroke, so that we'll be able to see it. And you can give a gradient to the stroke. And as you can see here, we've got a few more options since we're dealing with the stroke. You can choose here, this is just works as regular, but you can choose if to make it along the stroke. This is going like along the stroke or within the stroke. So this treats the stroke as a shape. So you can get some very cool and nice effects here, and you can play around with them. Now, once we worked very hard on creating a beautiful, nice gradient, and we may want to keep it for other times or other usages, or just to apply to any other object, we can save a gradient by going down to this panel option here and choose on this icon, Add to Swatches, or from the Swatches panel, you can go down to Windows and choose Swatches. From this option here, we can choose New Swatch, and I'll just add the swatch. You can name it here, and we have this gradient. Now I can delete this shape, create a new one, and we'll have this same swatch applied just by pressing it, or you can swap around there and get this nice stroke looking. By the way, you can see how cool this is because I applied two gradients, one to the stroke and one to the fill. I'm not sure if you can see it there, so it's like this shadow effect thing. You can get some quite cool effects with it. Unfortunately, we can't save a free form gradient, so it wouldn't work for this third option, but it will work for these two, so that's at least for that. So within the Adobe system, you've got tons of pre-made gradients. You can go down to your swatch panel, or you can actually choose it even from libraries, swatch libraries. You've got here loads of gradients. As you can see, there are so many gradients. You can also get that from the swatch panel by this icon here, and you have libraries where you can choose gradients. These are all organized according to categories. You have color combinations. You can just choose from any of these fruits and vegetables. That can just save you a lot of work on creating gradients. You can just get these, and of course you can change them here. So if you think it's a bit too much red, you can increase the white over there, or you can just delete it, stop, and just mess around with this as you wish, but it just helps you to get the idea. If you release an object and then you click on it once again with the gradient, you'll see this option, edit gradient. This brings you the gradient tool. As you can see, automatically I'm on the gradient tool, that's right there. And from here you can change all these options just as well. I made a separate lesson about the gradient tool, so you can check it out right there. And that's basically as far as gradients goes. I'll just give you one last tip. If you want to apply a gradient to text, as you can see when I click on this, it seems like it applies it, but nothing actually happens, and you won't be able to apply gradients. So to apply gradient to text, you have to go to Object and choose Expand, and then you'll be able to create a gradient because this is not text anymore. It's just a shape in the shape of a text. But the problem, of course, is that it's not text anymore. And if you want to erase any text or rewrite or anything like that, you wouldn't be able to. So normally we wouldn't want to expand text. The way we can make gradient to live text will be from the appearance panel. You can get it under Windows and choose appearance from there. So just make sure that you don't have the text selected, only the text box. So it's not selected like that, because then you wouldn't have any of these options. Just the text box selected, and then you can see right here you've got these two options. This is to create a new fill, and this is a new stroke. We can choose on a new fill, and from here we'll be able to choose any of these gradients. As you can see, we get this beautiful gradients on text, and this text is completely alive, so I can keep on typing stuff here or erasing just as well, and it works beautifully. There is another option without the appearance panel, so let's just undo, and that is with creating a clipping mask. So you can create any gradient you want. Say this is our gradient we made, and you can choose send to back. Then we choose both of them, right click and choose create make clipping mask there, and that will create a clipping mask for the text. That means it puts the gradient only where there is text or any layer which is above it. We'll learn about clipping masks in some other video, but once again the text here is fully editable, and even the gradients is also editable. You can just release the clipping mask and you'll get the gradient once over, and then you can just recreate that clipping mask. So just to sum things up, we've got our main three gradients here. To apply gradients, you just press on this gradient icon that will apply it. Normally it will be black and white. You can choose from here any other options which you have in your swatch panel, or like we said, you can go to libraries, swatch libraries, and choose from any of these gradients that we have here. You can also edit any gradients by moving these colors, changing by double clicking on them, or deleting by just pulling them down. And we can change between a linear gradient and a radial gradient, or even a free form gradient, which we can just move and create. And we've got here two types. You can choose points or lines. can of course give an opacity and the location of each gradient. So that's as far as the gradient panel goes. There is another option here for much more complicated gradients. If you're dealing with very complex gradients, or you want to make it look very realistic, we're gonna go to this gradient mesh tool. Sorry, mesh tool, not a gradient. And we can choose to create a mesh. Then of course you can choose with the direct selection tool and give a color to any of this. So you can change your colors here and create some very cool gradients. And these ones you can control completely how close it will be, which angle, and every single thing you want to get here. It's a lot more complicated working with this, and you can get very mixed up and confused with all these lines and gradients, but you wouldn't need to use it if you want to create some very realistic and complex gradients. But for this simple, nice gradients, we have the free form gradient, which we can just use by creating dots or lines anywhere, and that will be a lot easier and simpler. So thank you so much for joining me on this video. I hope you gained something from it. If you did, only if you did, please give a like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share any of your comments, ideas, questions, or just anything you want to add or share to this video. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.